Hello everybody. How's everybody doing out there? Whoever's on tonight, it is I, Rednez, the gaming realtor, and it's back on Monday again. As I mentioned in last week, I was going to be doing a series on every Monday. I was going to do some reality talk on my life, things that I experienced, um, things that I went through, things that I witnessed in my environment. Um, and I'm going to do a lot of blaming, I guess, on why some of the aspects of my life are the way they are um, because of that. So yeah, if you see this here on Twitch while I am live, please ask a question, make a comment. If you hear something that you relate to and you want to talk about it, or you want to expand a little bit on something that you went through, definitely put it in the comments. I will do my best to make sure I catch it and, um, comment myself, and then we can talk about it together. If you see this later on, at that point will be already pre-recorded, like on YouTube. Feel free to ask there as well. All of my channels that you find me on are all going to be under the same name, Rednez, the Gaming Realtor, and ask questions. If something touches, your heart or your mind or triggers a memory or something like that, and you want to talk about it, please feel free to put that in the chat or in the comment section, and I will address it ASAP. As my name says, I'm a realtor here in the Dayton, Ohio area. So that's my day job. And in the evenings, I would like to be doing a lot more streaming than what I'm doing now, which I'm not doing as much as what I should. In fact, like for instance, tonight, excuse me, I almost didn't stream. It's easier to just throw your hands in the air and say, well, maybe next week, and then just leave it at that. But I had to force myself. We had pretty good long day today. I helped my wife in doing Instacarting, and if you know what that is, cool. If you don't, I mean, it's just online shopping, and then you got people that go and do the shopping for you and drop them off at your house. So she's retired, so to pass the time, she does that, and I help her out doing it. So today we had a pretty long day. So with being tired and for some reason mentally foggy, I don't know why. I was about to give up, but on top of that was also the sense of why am I going to do this again and whine and cry and boohoo on a stream about all my woes in my past. Let the past be the past, and then just move on. But like I said last week, if you caught it either here or you caught it on YouTube, I need to do this. This is something that may be therapeutic for me. And it helped last week after I did it. It really actually did help some. And I hope that as I go along these series, these Mondays, and talk about not all, but some of the stuff that I went through, hopefully that alleviates some of the heartache and the stress or the weight of the past off of me. And hopefully that will also give the chance for somebody out there to say, well, wow, I'm not the only one that actually went through that stuff or feels that way or whatever. That's why I encourage that if you do pop up on here and something relates, definitely make a comment, and I will address it as much as I can. So, to slightly recap, and before I do that, quick disclaimer: undiagnosed ADHD. We know all the symptoms and the traits for it, and I do have them pretty good. There might be times that I go on bunny trails. So if I do, and I'm not coming back to the subject, please comment in and stop me and pull the reins, get me back on track. But if the bunny trail for some reason does still relate, then cool. Hopefully it gets me back in. But last week I talked about the majority of my childhood. There's a lot of aspects of my childhood that I don't remember. Stuff that I do, of course, and I talk mostly about them. And there's stuff about my childhood that I don't remember. Some of those attributed to as you get older and your mind gets more full with the things of life and the stresses of adulthood. Those things start piling up and they start replacing memories of your childhood. And in psychology class, I learned that some of those things are not permanently gone. They're just so pushed in that it takes somebody who knows how to travel your mental paths to go and retrieve those things. And I know that there's a lot of memories back there where I probably held them pretty precious to me, but I don't remember them. A lot of others of those memories I don't have because in 1997, March of 1997, I had a massive car accident, and I don't think you can see it, but there's a large scar here. I have 52 stitches, 3 layers. Drunk driver struck my car from behind and sandwiched me in between the Dodge truck that hit me and a Cadillac Eldorado in front of me. And me and that car were at a dead stop. The truck hit me at 65. Drunk driver. I think I said that. So that's where I got this, and I lost some memories. I lost, some parts of my life that have become not necessarily black holes, just black spots in my mind. From time to time, I've noticed that there's times where something happens and a smell or a sense of deja vu or a sound or something would trigger it. And I actually remember something that I thought I had lost. So that's pretty cool. But there's other stuff in where I know that there's a special memory there, but it's just a hole, and it's something that I'll never be able to retrieve. So last week I touched on quite a few things. Some of the things that I didn't touch on was on what my parents would have I don't know, institutionalized me or something, or sent me to, I don't know. But I mentioned last week that being from Guatemala, the majority of the people out there are very superstitious, and they strongly believe in the spiritual world and energies and angels, demons, ghosts, and all that stuff. And I believe in them as well. And as I've gotten older, there's there's like a switch in definition of angels and demons and energies and spirits and stuff like that that have gone in through my head. But some of the things that I experienced when I was a kid was I was very intrigued in what we would know as the dark arts or magic, black magic, white magic, gray magic, stuff like that. Telekinesis, telepathy, all those sorts of things. And as a child, there was um, many times in where I was left alone. And I had a lot of time to be creative in what I wanted to do and how I wanted to be adventurous in those kinds of desires. And when I mean alone, I mean literally alone. I would go to school from 7:30 in the morning till about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and then walk home unless I rode the bus. And once I got to the house, my dad was at the church, or doing whatever he had to do there, or out with the people doing whatever he was doing there. My mom, she had gotten a job as a accountant and bookkeeper for a Christian bookstore, and that was about an hour and a half away from where we lived. So, and she used to work 10, 12 hours a day, and which, of course, my father would take that opportunity, and he would be going all day himself. So when I would get home, there was nobody there. So I had a good 2, 3 hours by myself until I had to get ready to then go to church, or had to get ready for my brother to pick me up to then go to church, or for my aunts and uncles to pick me up to go to, however it happened. But in those hours that I was there by myself, there was quite a few times in where I sat there and my mom had a coffee table that would be in front of the couch, one of the long ones with a glass top, and she used to have a bowl in the middle of it where she would either put candy there or fruits. Excuse me, my throat's a little dry tonight. But I would empty it out and then put the bowl in the center of it and then concentrate and picture in my mind which direction I wanted the bowl to move. And I couldn't tell you if it happened immediately or minutes or hours later, or I don't know. All I know is that I would zone out. And I don't know if you guys ever experienced zoning out. You're sitting there and all of a sudden you stare out into the distance and you're just lost into who knows what. Well, that's what would happen. I would zone out. And whenever I would zone out, I would then get startled back awake because the bowl would actually move into the direction where I would see it in my mind go. And that was not the only thing. I would get apples and put them, and they would roll, and I would put orange juice, and they would roll. Waddle up paper and put them in front of me, and they would roll. Excuse me. I can't do that now. If I would try, I think if I would get back into the curiosity stage of trying to do those kind of things, I'm sure that I would probably get back there again. And to whoever's watches this now or later, it might be like, you're just talking nonsense. Well, it might be nonsense to you. It might be unbelievable, but it's something I did experience. Most of you guys that will see this, if you know of this, I would love for you guys to comment wherever you see this. I'd love for you to comment if you actually had this in your house or one of your relatives had it in their house. But and I mentioned it last week, we had a mural wall of mirror tiles with with like goldish designs within the mirrors, and in the center of it was a mural of a waterfall. And I would always picture myself hiking and whatnot in the mountains, finding that waterfall and just sitting there for hours, talking to different creatures of the forest or beings like fairies and stuff like that. Which, of course, like I said, if I would have told my parents that, then they would have institutionalized me just so they wouldn't have to deal with the fact that I'm talking to quote unquote demons, evil spirits. And I tried a couple of times, succeeded once, but I tried a couple of times just staring into the mirror, not directly at me, but just kind of off to top right, whichever, so I wouldn't see myself. And I wasn't thinking of moving anything or whatever, but I just kind of let myself zone out, and I would see the mirrors wobble, kind of like the Matrix. When something big happens, you can see the windows of the buildings rippling and all that, and then the explosion hits because it's the Matrix, so you can see all of those things. Kind of like the same thing, just not at that big of a scale. And for when it happened, it was crazy to me that it happened, and I'm like, oh my god, this is amazing. But the older I got, the more I just attributed it to imagination, because I like I said, I still do. A couple of doctors have said, yeah, you got the symptoms for it, but it's never been, like formally medically diagnosed ADHD. And looking back to when I was a little kid, what we would call a level of autism, excuse me, and ADHD, that's what I had. I could not sit still as a kid. I could not pay attention. It was very rare for me to be able to focus on whatever was happening, in school, in a class, or at church during sermons or whatever, because if they really didn't capture my imagination, I couldn't pay attention to it. My wife and I had this conversation recently, and there's been 4 books in my lifetime of 49 years, 50 years, that I've actually read the whole way and multiple times. One of them being Lord of the Rings, because it caught my imagination so deeply that I was able to focus on that and that alone. And I wanted to go back because I could see the characters, I could see the story, I could see the scenery, the adventures they were having. I could see it in my mind, so therefore I wanted to go back and experience it. I was a kid that would lose himself in the imagination and the creativity within my mind because of everything else that was going on around me. I didn't want to go through it. I didn't want to hear the things that people were talking about or saying about me or anything like that. Which of course would then make me out to be very vulnerable to bullying. And I did. I got bullied quite a bit. And I've seen stories out there nowadays, more like vines or memes and stuff like that, in where nerdy kids would take on their World of Warcraft character or whichever, and try to gain courage and strength through that character in order to fend off their bully, or to seem like they weren't scared of that bully, and it would backfire on them. And I would sit here and be like, man, such idiots. I mean, you can see right through that facade. And the more I think about myself, and I think this is one of the reasons why I'm doing this, so I can look back and remember where I came from, so I can appreciate where I'm at, that I was one of those nerdy kids that pretended to be strong because of the characters that I had created in my mind. Or, again, this is early 80s, mid 80s. We didn't have World of Warcraft. You know what I'm saying? We had Dungeons and Dragons, but as a board game, we didn't have movies. At least that I seen at that time. I think there was a Dungeons and Dragons movie, but there was nothing that I could have seen, because my parents wouldn't have allowed it because of Christianity. And in saying it now and thinking of it, I remember we had a guest preacher come through the church, and they preached on Dungeons and Dragons and how dangerous it was for the children, that they would get lured in, and they would actually be doing a style of Ouija board and conjuring evil spirits and becoming possessed. And either today or next week, I'll get into some of those stories. Things that I've experienced, seen firsthand, that freak me out. But at the same time, things that are like, come on, really? And I guess I can just throw a disclaimer here. If you are heavy into Christianity, a believer, Christian, born again, strong believer in Christianity, and you want to kind of hear my story, but don't want to be offended of the things that I'm going to say that are against Christianity, then by all means, hit stop on the video, or excuse yourself from the stream, whichever it may be. That's cool for you. That's cool for me, because I am an ex Pentecostal minister, pastor. I lean more to universalism, if that's even a word, paganism for the Christians, because I'm pretty against Christianity, and that's not because somebody convinced me of it. It's just the things that I experienced in my 49, 50 years. But that's me. I'm not here to try to convince you otherwise. If that's where you find comfort, that's where you find comfort. You go ahead and you do that. But if you're easily offended, then this isn't the conversation. And again, if you're here on the live, thank you, welcome. I greatly appreciate your attention, and interact. Ask me any questions that you would want answered, or if you want me to explain a certain thing that I said about myself and of me growing up I would definitely love to do that. So heading back to my childhood, just kind of finishing it off. If I remember any other things, I'll cover them whenever I can, but I don't want to spend too much time. Although it is, I guess, important to remember those things. I had a difficult time trying to express myself when I was a little kid, to adults and whatnot. And I was kind of bashful because things that I would say would get judged or criticized rather quickly by pretty much everybody. Ideas that I would have, or creativity, dreams, imaginations, whatever, anything, unless it had anything to do with the Christian God and church, it was useless. So it had to bring some kind of benefit to that. And it got me to the point as a child that I wanted to kind of expand my creativity. And in order for me to be able to do that, I had to give in to the religious side of it as a kid. And if you see the first video from last Monday, I think it would have been the 28th or something like that, of May 2023. The thumbnail for that video is me at 8 years old, on the lower pulpit, if you will, giving my first sermon. And what was it? I was trying to remember last week too. I think it was on Job, a character of the Bible named Job. I think it was. Or was it David and Goliath? No, it wasn't David and Goliath. I think it was Job. And that photo thumbnail, you should be able to catch it if it's up, because I've been trying to upload it. So if you don't see it tonight, it'll definitely be there by the morning. But I have my cartoon version of me like this, my thumb, yeah, that's me, saying, yeah, that's me, pointing towards myself. Around that age, 8, 9 years old, there used to be a program for children that was going around all the churches, and it was called Club Timothy. In Spanish would be Club Timoteo. And it was kind of like a Christian version of Sesame Street, teaching the Bible. Some of you out there that may see this, one example of that would be VeggieTales. VeggieTales, of course, using computer animated fruits and vegetables in order to tell stories from the Bible, in order to teach morals to children. And I like those cartoons. I do. Even though they're very heavily Christian influenced, and just those characters are hilarious, especially Larry the Cucumber. But this program, Club Timothy, allowed you to purchase their puppets, just in case your church did not have any puppeteers, meaning people that can actually build the puppets. You can have your church purchase these specialized puppets, and they will send them to you. And I do not have any photos of it. I thought there was some existing photos, but I don't have any in my possession. But I created a puppet town out of refrigerator boxes. And again, following the same concepts of Sesame Street, in where certain characters would have certain places that they would live or be at. And then the main character of that one show or that one program that day would travel from one point to another within Sesame Street, right? Well, I did that. Club Timothy only had it in one space. For instance, what you see here where I'm at, it would be like a window here, and then a window here, and they would talk to each other and tell jokes and stories and whatnot. And I didn't like that. I thought that was boring. So what I did is I asked all of the people in our church that if they knew of someone or themselves bought a refrigerator or a stove, and it came in cardboard boxes, to please not throw the boxes away, collapse them, and bring them to the church. Because we were, us in the children's ministry, we were going to do a special project with them. So I don't remember how many I got. I think there were a bunch. An enormous amount of those boxes. But I remember I spread them out into just flat. Because in the building of our church, there was a court, a basketball court / volleyball court on the property. So I extended all the cardboard boxes, lined them up next to each other. And then I got a Sharpie that I had to get one of the adults to buy for me, because at first I couldn't do it. And I drew out the entire scenery. And I'm saying this to you now because I had not remembered this in a long time. So I laid it out and I drew out different buildings, and I made the outlines of those buildings thicker. And I outlined flowers, windowsills and the windows, and doors, and where us as kids would come through, not the puppets, but us as kids would come through. And where curtains would be, and how the boxes would join up together so they wouldn't fall down and all that. And after that, then I asked the adults to cut out the thick lines all the way around, all the way through. And then once they were all stood up, then you had an entire town. From one side to the other, you had literally an entire town of this Club Timothy. And then we got puppets from the company, and out of those puppets, I can't remember who it was. It was me and one of the adults from the children's side. We kind of took apart one of the puppets real carefully and seeing how they were made. And once we realized how they were made, then we made the rest of our own, because they didn't have some of the characters that I wanted. Like I wanted a lion, I wanted a monkey, I wanted a skunk, and there was one other, a squirrel, and I wanted a squirrel. So we figured it out, and we built them. They look really dumb in my vague memory of it. It wasn't professional like the other ones, but it was close enough. And then for that special service, in order for us to do that show, that presentation, we had that service earlier in the day so that we could put all the chairs in that volleyball basketball court where people could sit there or stand, because there were a lot of people, like over 500 people, probably more. And then they would still be able to see the town. And then we set up the speakers and everything, and we did the show. And mind you, I'm 8, 9 years old. So in order for me to really express my creativity, I have to give in to the religious side of it. And then when I tried to then go into drama class, then I got scolded because that's not where I was going to waste my talents. It was not going to be into, theater. It was going to be in the church. So if I was going to do any productions or acting or anything like that, it was going to be for the church. Which then, later on in life, that kind of came in a little handy, but still, I'm doing this. I again, you see I'm talking a lot with my hands. So I gotta adjust the camera, sorry. I did that with my hands, and it activated the motion. So as soon as it did that, then it started picking up this poster right here. And for some reason, it's going over there. And, so I don't know. I'm hoping that this time it's not freezing up in any way. And I think everything's sounding okay. Well, that's not. I'm seeing some of the stuff is peaking, so I apologize. Kind of correcting that at the moment. That's some of the things that I'm remembering about my childhood. There's a lot more things that I could talk about when I was a kid. But I kind of want to move on to the next portion, I guess, or segment, and going from my childhood years into my preteen and teenage years, in which this segment then would be called the struggles as a teen, which I should name the struggles of a preteen and a teen. And the first things I want to kind of touch on is individuality of a child or growing up. When you're just a kid, just a child, I would say 12 years and younger. Well, actually, no, I would say about 10 years and younger. About 10 years. Now, yeah, about 10 years and younger. Majority of the kids don't care about individuality unless it's completely and totally 100% continually thrown in their face of what they are supposed to be and supposed to do and all of that stuff, like I was. I couldn't think of anything else. I couldn't try anything else. I couldn't go anywhere else. Anything and everything that I had to do had to be church related and for God. And that's the Christian basis. That's the Christian religion. which is funny to me how nowadays those that call themselves Christians, quote unquote Christians, are out there screaming that these pagans or these homosexuals or these transgenders are trying to indoctrinate our children when they're proving to the world time and time again that the most dangerous religion, the most fake religion, the most I just have to go back to dangerous. The most dangerous religion to indoctrinate your children in is Christianity. No matter what the sect of Christianity is, there's over 300 different sects of Christianity, and every single one indoctrinates children. When children are not raised to focus on these kind of aspects, children don't care about individuality. Children care about inclusion. Meaning, I want to have fun. I want to play. I want to create. I want to go on adventures. And I want to bring any and everybody that wants to come along. I don't care about color of skin or length of hair or style of dress, or if you call yourself he, she, him, her, they don't care. They don't care what it is. They'll call you by your name or give you a nickname so you can give them a nickname as well, and that's what you call each other. And you go on your adventures. You go out there and you enjoy yourself. You go out there and whatever. They don't care about individuality. The stresses of life and of adulthood now, oh, this is what you have to be. That's what pushes children to grow up too fast, among other stuff. But that's one of the major things that causes children to grow up too fast. And I was trying not to grow up. I was trying to stay a child as long as possible, to stay within the quote unquote Disney magic for as long as I could. Because even at a young age, I knew that adulthood sucked. And I didn't want to get there. I didn't want to do it. Excuse me. If everything that all these adults were going through was the things that I was going to go through, no, let me stay a kid as long as I possibly can. So about 10 years old or so, I think the children just want to enjoy themselves. Just want to, whatever happens, happens. Around that time, about 11 years old, I discovered skateboarding. I seen a Thrasher magazine, and there was this guy, Rob Roscoe, and his skateboard has a hand. Let's see, I'll pick it up again. Has a hand like this, but with a mouth right here. And he actually has a skateboard series where it's the skateboard itself, and then it starts cracking, and then it starts exploding, and then there's a hand coming through, and by the time it's all said and done, there's a hand with the mouth on it, and I mean, it's amazing. So there's a video out there called Wheels of Fire. Wheels of Fire. Can't believe I actually remember the name. And if you guys, is this thing following me? Yes, it is. I gotta turn it off. Hold on for a second. Excuse me. I ate dinner before I came here. If you guys ever go on YouTube and you want something to something classic to enjoy, look up Wheels of Fire. If you guys like that old VCR, VHS aesthetics of the 80s, this thing has it in all aspects. It's a bunch of skateboarding. It's like a documentary of skateboarding. And now talking about it, I think I'm gonna look at it tomorrow. I actually had the VHS for a very long time. I don't think I have it anymore, but the wonders of the internet nowadays, who needs it, right? So Wheels of Fire. And around that time, my brother had also discovered BMX freestyling on bicycles, doing tricks on bicycles and whatnot. And so for all my life, I always idolized my brother, and I wanted to be like my brother. And the reason why I got into art and drawing and all that was because of my brother. My brother would sit down and draw squirrels and stuff like that, and I would just be left in awe because I'm like, man, this dude's good. I want to be like him. And yeah, so I learned how to draw because of him. And then when he found BMX freestyling, I found skateboarding, and I became a skater. To the point where I let my hair grow. See, I don't have any hair now because I'm losing my hair around here. So now my forehead went from here, which is normal, to back here, which is not normal, and I hate it. So if there's any products out there that any of you know that helps you grow your hair back, please let me know so I can put it back here and have, because I had long wavy hair, and then I had the sides right here shaved, and then the hair fell over that, and then I would have the classic skater wave, and where it would come down like this, and go back up. Now, mind you, my parents didn't mind the long hair because in the Bible, a lot of the characters had long hair because they were nasty. Like for instance, Jesus had long hair because he was Nazarene, and part of the culture was to have long hair. And of course, Old Testament laws was that no blade should touch the hair. So, yeah, they had long hair. So they didn't mind that, but they didn't know that I had shaved the sides off and let it fall over. And then whenever I wasn't going to church or at home, like if I was at school or something like that, then I could grab my hair and then put it in a ponytail, right up here. I don't know how to show you guys. And I would have the shaved sides and the back, and I was the coolest thing in the world. I didn't care what anybody said. And I'll mind you, right now, I look a good size, I guess. I don't know, I'm about 180, 190, maybe 200 pounds. I probably didn't even pass 70 pounds when I was that age. The reason why I'm saying that is because I graduated high school weighing 110 pounds. I was stick thin, literally stick thin. And if I make some special edits or whatever for the videos for YouTube, I'll put photos of myself as I'm talking about it. I was very, very skinny. And again, I apologize. Camera's up here, not down here. I don't know doing that. But yeah, I became a skater, and my brother and I and his friends and my cousins, we used to build ramps, launch ramps, in the apartment complex we lived, and we used to skate or launch on the skateboard or launch on our bikes and stuff. One time we had to build a quite good sized ramp, and there was a ramp like this, and then there was the microphone represents a refrigerator box. We had the ramp like that, and we would come to the bicycles and jump over and land. And I came. My brother's like, "Don't do it! Don't do it! You have to start small. You don't do the big one." And I'm like, "Nah, I got it. Shut up, I got it." And he goes, "All right, if you're gonna do it, remember, pull the handlebar up. When you get to the ramp, pull the handlebar up. Concept for that is that if you pull the handlebar, holy crap, I can't talk, up, that means that your bike goes like this. So when you launch off, you go like that, and when you land in your back wheel, front wheel, or both at the same time. You never want to land on your front wheel first, because it's easy for you to lose control. Okay. Well, that's not what happened to me. I went the distance and turned around. I was coming hard, just pedaling. Here I come. Hit the ramp, and then I pulled up the handlebar like he said. I did it. But when I launched, I noticed just how high up I was. Okay. And instead of me saying, "Stay where you're at and land," my mind, I figured, well, if I'm pulling the bike up to jump as high, that means that I can push the bike down to go down faster. So I pushed the bike down, and I landed on both wheels, okay? But it was kind of like front back, and it was fast enough that my feet slipped off the pedals, and I went bonk, just like that. And then I rode crying like this because, I destroyed my gonads on that jump. And I rode a good, I don't know, 50, 60 yards before my brother and one of his friends caught up to me in their bikes and stopped me. Because I couldn't stop. I couldn't move. I was in such a lot of pain. And when they finally stopped me, I just collapsed on the floor. They were all laughing at me because they thought it was hysterical. But I was in pain. It was hard for me to walk right for a few days after that, which of course they made fun of me even more. But I'm saying this story not only because I discovered skateboarding, and becoming a skater, but it's one of my points about you're around that age and you don't care what anybody's going to call you, your pronouns or anything like that. You don't care about that. You're a kid. You want to be a kid. You want to have fun, and that's all you're thinking about when you're having external forces pushing down on you to become something. That's when you start caring about everything else. Well, in my junior high school, or middle school, as it's known here in the Central East, in middle school, I was a pretty big time skater, and I was like that, good 7th grade, 6th grade to 7th grade. I was all about skating, and I went everywhere with my skateboard. And they have them now. They have backpacks where you can slip your skateboard into, and then you go on your day. I had made one of those out of a leather backpack back, in the mid late 80s. I already had made one for my skateboard, and all the skateboard accessories like the wheels, bearings, tools, all that stuff. Grip tape, and now they're selling them everywhere. I don't know anything about copyright or trademarking or anything. Well, towards the end of 7th grade, starting 8th grade, I'm going to assume, because I don't remember exactly when this happened, but somewhere around there, is where I discovered and began to enjoy the musical talents of Depeche Mode, of The Cure, the Smiths, and other alternative rock, or I should say alternative European rock, which was known as goth rock. And I vaguely remember, and I'm going to be saying it that way because I don't remember it vividly, but I vaguely remember hearing this music, and somewhere around this time is where MTV started. And I remember seeing these videos, and these guys in their black clothes, and I already liked the black aesthetic of things. My favorite color was dark blue, or like midnight blue and black. When I became later in my teenage years, and I quote unquote fell in love with a girl, my favorite color became hunter green because of her. Gross. But my original and an all-time favorite, which is what it is now and always will be, is blue, midnight blue, and black. Black being a shade and blue the color. Hence, all of this. And then, of course, the influence of, later on, of course, the influence of Batman. That's for later stories. So, here I am, a skater, and I wanted, and part of the thing about when you're a skater is the same thing back there in the 80s, is everybody had their style of music in order to do their skateboard tricks to, much like what was known as breakdancing. Everybody used to breakdance, street dance, and I don't know how you would call it nowadays to refer to those type of dancing then. But everybody had their own music style to dance to, as well as to skateboard to. Well, when I discovered the goth rock, I wanted to utilize that and skate to it. Which, to a point, some of the acquaintances, which I called them friends, that were skaters, didn't like it because that would involve the goths to be mixed into it. So I split it up, and whatever they were playing, whatever my friends were playing to skateboard to, then that's what I would skateboard to. If I was by myself and I would have my own music, then I would put on the goth music, and that would be it. But when I wasn't around my skater friends, but I was around my goth friends, then I was all goth. And part of being all goth, they would take it as far as the makeup and all that. I told them that I wish I could, but I couldn't, because there would be no way for me to be able to take all that off in time. so my parents wouldn't kill me because of religion, the Christianity. And they understood. So now I split into 3 lives: my Christian life, my skater life, and my goth life. And in my goth life is what really started, um, it really started pulling me towards more of what we know in our terms as the occult, magic, and all of that stuff. Because that is what, kind of like what nowadays would be emo, um, the emotional music, the emotional stands of the era of millennials that, you're living by your feelings. Goths are somewhat like that, but darker. And I wanted more of that. And I wanted more of the occult. I wanted more of the dark, of the mysterious. Everybody believed they were, at some way, shape, or form, we were vampires. And skaters were more, icky because they were they were possibly werewolves. We don't know. Werewolves and God and vampires don't get along, so that's probably right. And I was loving it because it triggered my imagination, it triggered my creativity, and I wanted more of it. But I also lived in Los Angeles, in the borders of South Central Los Angeles and, um, neighboring cities. The city I lived in was in Cudahy, so it was like right border. And the generation my brother comes from, his generation of, the neighborhood of Ice Cube and Snoop Dogg and, NWA. So these are the people that he knew, and, the people that he would hang around with, the kind of, groups that he would have, which in the transit, I forget how it's said now, in the properties of whatever, just being in the vicinity, because I can't think because I'm very tired. Just being in the vicinity of the friends that my brother had put me in a position of having the being friends of the little brothers and the little sisters of those friends, which meant that, um, there was a other life that, as a teenager, I had to start incorporating in order not to survive, but to maintain a level of respect. Again, Los Angeles, and in the area where I lived, it was heavy in gang life. Okay. The apartment complex I lived in did a span of, from one street called Elizabeth Street, went to way to the other side, um, to the other street called Clara Street. And in Clara Street, there was one gang of Clara Street, and in Elizabeth Street, there was 2 different gangs. One on one side of Elizabeth, which I think was more east, and the other one was more west. So, and everybody in these gangs, surrounding the neighborhood and whatnot, knew my father and knew my family because they knew my father was a minister. So I couldn't get what was known as, I couldn't get jumped in to any gang. I couldn't get forced into any gang because other gangs would take offense to that, serious offense, because you're trying to then isolate the minister, quote unquote, to just one representation. When a minister, whether Christian or Catholic, like a priest, they're neutral. That's neutral space. It's kind of like in the gang life I grew up in. You don't touch your mom. I could be standing right in front of the mother of the most hated um, gang member that's against my gang, but I couldn't touch her. To make that guy suffer or that girl suffer, it's not even thought of. It wasn't. It was completely unheard of. You don't mess with moms and don't mess with grandmas. You just wouldn't do it. Nowadays, who cares? That's how some of these kids think. It's like a free for all, and it's crazy to me. But that's neither here nor there. Um, but because I was the preacher's kid, I was known as the preacher because they knew that I would stand up in the pulpit and give sermons. So at first it was making fun of me, calling me the preacher, and then it just stuck. So then that became my quote unquote gang name from some of the little groups around there and in my school. But because I was the preacher's kid, I couldn't join a gang. Not that I really wanted to, but I couldn't join gangs. So I had friends in um, every gang that surrounded the school and my neighborhood. So in turn, one of the quote unquote secret lives I had was being a gang member. And aspects of that life I won't speak on. But trying to keep up with that life was very, very difficult because it's not a fast paced life, but it is a life of survival, which is part of the aspect of my life now, in where sound or movement catches my attention. So no matter where I'm at, here I sound or movement has me doing this number. I follow movement because I need to make sure who's doing what. Um, I have become very self-aware to my environment and myself on how I'm feeling. Um, why did I go from being, for instance, like right now, if I would be out there doing something, I'm very tired, so I'm a little foggy. So why did I go from being tired and foggy to being super alert? Something's up. So then pay attention to that. That lifestyle gave me a huge wake up call on my surroundings because I started noticing things that before I would have never paid attention to. But that was one of my secret lives. So my skater life wasn't that secret because I mean that's just having fun on your skateboard, not being in a gang or doing anything bad, except if you want to call vandalizing street corners and curves and stuff like that, with your board. So that wasn't a secret. Everybody knew that. My goth side was somewhat of a secret. I incorporated into I incorporated it into my everyday dress and all that. So it wasn't too noticeable to those that didn't pay attention, which was everybody. Um, my gang life, my gang life um, was very secretive from everyone, my friends, my family. I kind of hinted at it with my friends because I was a musician as a teenager in the church's band. And I was like, first I was just either the bass player or the drummer. And then as I taught other friends to play certain instruments, or they learned them themselves, then I moved up into leadership of the band. And I kind of blended the gang life into the church friend group because um, I made all of my friends buy the same style and color of um, raincoat. So, dark blue raincoats over our suits. So we kind of sort of began to do kind of like a mafia attitude about certain things. And that's how, whenever it would be Sunday services or Saturday services, which were the main days of church, um, that's how we would leave our house in the morning and return to our homes in the evenings. And we were dressed like that the whole day. And we were all together, all five of us, four or five of us. So we were four to five deep in a mafia style looking thing. So yeah, I kind of incorporated the gang style into that, but no one knew that I actually hung around a lot of gang members, and there was a lot of tragedy that I experienced as a in my life of in the gangs. There's a lot of tragedy that I gave to others during that life. And in my case, it was more a necessity of survival than just privilege of I'm a gang member so I can do whatever I want. No, it was either we either had to do something or we would be dead. And yeah, these things would happen, and then once they were done, then I would have to be the one praying over those that didn't make it. Yeah, and this is just the starting of my teenage years. This is just the starting of my teenage years. And so there's quite a few things of my I guess preteen years that I don't remember anymore at all. But what I do remember is just skateboarding and turning into God. Once I got into high school, in ninth grade, I pushed further into gang life um, just because in high school there was a lot of gang members there. And then, of course, the other life was being the preacher, and then was the artist, and then the musician. And then, of course, once I stopped pretending all of that stuff, I was I was somewhat of an introvert. I preferred being alone, but I was also a chameleon. And what I mean by being a chameleon is depending on my surroundings, my environment, that's what I became. So whoever I was with, that's what I was. And I blended in as best as I could. Again, I was 90, 95 pounds in high school. And part of what I would dress as was my jeans normally would be a size 24, 25, I think, if I remember correctly. I would, because of the people that I was hanging around with, I would buy size 40 pants and fold them in front and then fold them in the back with a belt. And then the belt had to be extra long because once you looped it in and then you had that, the little spike go through the hole and then you put it in through the loop, then the remaining part of the belt had to fold down and come down. And in my fortunate self, being that I already liked black and blue, um, I was already lucky enough that I was sporting the quote unquote flag of the blue, known as Crips. And that was fortunate to me. But in a way, it was unfortunate though, because you have to remember that you will always be guilty by association. Whatever it is that you're doing, good or bad, you're guilty by association. If you're doing something good, if somebody beside you is doing something good and you're with them, then you are also doing something good. If somebody that doesn't know you or this other person sees, oh my God, look at this guy helping this homeless person or doing this nice thing, when they go and tell the story, they're going to include you in it because they've seen you there. Yeah, these two guys, they were doing this amazing thing. And you're probably sitting there on your phone, texting or on Facebook or something, watching TikToks, and didn't do any of that. But you were guilty by association in doing that thing because you were right there. Same thing as in doing bad things. You will always be guilty by association. So I wasn't. Again, to reiterate what I said earlier today in this video, I wasn't in a gang because, again, being the preacher's kid, I couldn't be. Because I had friends in every gang, and I was respected as part of the preacher's family. And we would attend different funeral or weddings of different gangs because we would get invited to those things. Either my dad would be doing the eulogy or somebody in our church was. So the problem with that is, again, guilty by association, meaning I was in an area in where the majority of the people I hung out with were under the flag of the color blue, known as Crips. But our church property sat in the neighborhood, territory, domain, whichever you want to call it, of the color red, known as the Bloods back then. Which them two are humongous rivals back then. I've been out of that life for many years, just about 30 years. And so I don't know where all that lands now because I haven't heard much about it. But back then, Bloods and Crips, it was very rare that they came together to agree on anything. Very rare. Other than the very rare times they were at each other's throats, killing each other constantly. Constantly. So I had to then make sure I was not in any way, shape, or form showing affiliation to where I lived while I was at the church. Because, yeah, there was some crazies back then, too. So I had to be careful on not spilling one life into the other. So I guess you can say I was a pretty good Batman because I, yeah, I could hide my identity and become whatever I needed to become in these lives, that I created. Um, some I created because of survival, like I said. Others I created because I wanted to. I love that life, like goth. What made it somewhat difficult to do all these things in the middle of all that is, again, we did not know anything about ADHD or autism or spectrum or anything like that back then, in the 80s. But thinking back, that's why it was very difficult for me to just stay with one group, because I would scroll from one thing to the other real quick. And it just made it very difficult for me to focus, just or be just one person for everything, because of that factor of being ADHD. I gotta say this one memory that just popped in, and I was 10th grade. Yeah, we just had started 10th. No, we were ending the 10th grade. We were ending the 10th grade. And for a few months now, I had been getting told by other people that a certain guy wanted to fight me. And there was a certain date that he was going to jump me when I was going to be walking from one side of the school to the other, because I walked right by their lunch area where they ate. And I don't remember how I figured out who it was, but I figured out who it was. So I kept an eye out for him. And again, my friends from the gangs were like, we'll take care of it. If this is really bothering you, if you feel scared about this, don't worry about it. We got you. And I'm like, no. And they're like, but you're a preacher. You're supposed to show love. Let us take care of it. You know what I'm saying? You don't gotta get your hands dirty on this. Hey, we got it. And I said, no, just because I'm a preacher doesn't mean that I'm gonna wuss out on this thing. Now, mind you, not only because there might be kids watching here, and I have somewhat of respect still with that. I cussed really bad back then, and I'm not doing that now for certain reasons. And I might explain about them later, but yeah, my language and what I'm saying now is paraphrased because it was quite colorful then. So I told him that I would take care of it. I said, just follow behind me a certain way, just only because if this guy tries to do something and his friends jump in, then yeah, I'm gonna need some help. So they were like, cool. So I remember that day came, and I'd been nervous. And I had told my brother about it, and my brother's like, well, tell so-and-so and so-and-so. And I'm like, well, I already did. He goes, you kind of didn't worry about it. So I was nervous that morning, and lunchtime came, and I ate, and I had about, I don't know, 10 minutes before the bell rang. Literally bell, not a boop or anything like that, like a bell. It rang. I had about 10 minutes or so. So I started walking from that side of the school where I was at to the opposite side, and I knew I had to go by that area, and I wanted to avoid it so bad that I didn't. I went straight to it. And here he comes. And let me tell you, I have I have been an ally for many years. Okay. And this guy, yes, he was gay. And to those that may be offended at me saying this guy, but that's what he referred himself to. Okay. He was still gay, but that's how he referred himself. And he walked up with the flair and flamboyance that he can possibly muster, and he slaps me. And he starts cussing me out, and I'm like, I don't even remember what he's really telling me, but I remember he's cussing me out, accusing me of stuff, and I don't remember what it was he accusing me of. And I'm telling him that I have no idea what he's talking about. And he's like, it's too late, I don't care, this is it, kicking your butt, you're dead. So I remember he comes flying at me, just hands going like this. And again, he didn't have, being that he was gay, he didn't have fake nails. He had real, long, actual, hard claw nails. And in my mind right now, I'm remembering them being red, but I think in reality they're more like pink. So these pink claws are coming at me. I remember this is the first time that this had ever happened. And it happened a few times after this. This time is the first time this ever happened. I didn't know what to do, so I dropped my backpack and I prepared myself to just keep him off me as much as I could. And I remember he starts scratching my head, scratching my face. He punches me in my face, kind of like sideways like this. It wasn't that hard, but then, and meanwhile he's doing all this, I'm screaming at his friends, call a teacher, call a counselor, because if he doesn't stop, I'm gonna kill this dude. And they're laughing at me because this guy's just literally beating me up, and I'm telling them to do this stuff as I'm trying to push him away, and they wouldn't. Nobody did. So I'm like, cool. But as I'm realizing that I'm gonna have to do something, he hits me square right on my chin, and I black out. Now, I'm thinking he hit me hard and he knocked me out. That's it. He won, and everybody's just going to tease me about it from here on in. But no, I blacked out, and when I came to, I was choking him out. Somehow, I went superhero mode or rage mode or something. I don't know what it was, but he hit me hard enough and solid enough that my mind clicked off, and apparently I automatically then just did a whole turn thing, lifting him up into the air, and kind of like a wrestling move, and went backwards and knocked the wind out of him. I rolled him on top. I rolled him on top of me, and then I started choking him. And he was, when I came to, he was almost unconscious. And that's about the time where the school police showed up, because, again, where we're at, a lot of gangs, we actually have police throughout the school. So about that point, the police got there and, got him off and got me off, picked us up and took us to the office. And my memory stops halfway there as they're dragging us there. I don't remember what happened after that. I might have gotten suspended, or maybe I didn't, or I don't know. I don't know what happened after that. But I'm saying that story because it's part of the beginning of one side of my life, and where it was pretty violent. In the sense of it wasn't, I couldn't control it. Just because I would black out and then come to, and I would be bleeding and stuff, but the majority of the time, whoever I was either defending myself from or fighting against, would be worse for wear, if you will. I'm not boasting about myself on that because I have no, well, actually, I should say I have very, very little training in fighting, but nothing in the training that I have came after I moved here to Ohio. So I had none back then. So everything was pretty much street smart kind of learning. It's kind of weird. That kind of pretty weird. Needless to say, the only other vague memory I have about that incident was the fact that my parents didn't know. Parents didn't know. My brother was the one that went to pick me up later on that day. I remember that. But again, I don't remember what happened in the office or if I got suspended or anything like that. But I do remember my brother was the one who picked me up because he picked me up in the front of the school. In the middle of all of this, very real situations that were happening in school and in church and whatnot. I was still 8, 9 years old when it came to my imagination and my desire, my longing to escape the world. In middle school is when it started. The sense of fear of losing everything. And I think that's what drove me to then start living different lives with different people, trying to find some kind of answer or way out. Excuse me. In the beginning of middle school, this is my preteen years, I remember I was coming home from middle school, junior high. It was Southgate Junior High. And I remember seeing an ambulance speeding by me. And exactly what I just did is what I did then. I was holding on to my backpack like this. I just had finished eating this big giant pickle in a bag. And I had popped in a Jolly Rancher in my mouth, and I grabbed my straps in my backpack like this, and I was just walking. I always walked looking down, always walked looking down. And I remember hearing the ambulance coming, and when we got close, I just looked up, looked at it, and watched it drive by, speed by. Didn't pay no mind to it. Kept walking. And this is a vivid memory I do have. So then I put my head back down and started walking. I made it probably a length of about maybe 5, 6 cars from when I seen the ambulance pass me to the point where I noticed the car stop beside me. And I looked over, and it was my mom's car, but my brother was driving it. And he said, "Jump in the car, we gotta go." And I said, "What happened?" And he's like, "Shut up and jump in the car, we gotta go." So I jumped in the car, and we took off. And I'm waiting for him to do a U-turn. I thought he would just come to the school and pick me up. But I'm waiting for him to do a U-turn, but he kept going. And, he slowed down to a red light, honked his horn, started honking his horn like crazy, and then, just burned right through it. And he did that a couple of times until I realized that we were on the tail of that ambulance. But I still didn't put it two and two together. And then the ambulance turned. I can't remember exactly which direction it turned, but it turned. My brother turned on the next street. And then he told me to leave my backpack in the car, just we have to get in. And I'm like, "Who's in the hospital?" And he goes, "Shut up, let's go." And so we went into the hospital. And I don't remember first floor, second floor, third floor. I don't remember. All I know is we got to a waiting room. And somebody that we knew was there. I can't remember who. Can't remember who. But somebody that we knew was there. And I kept asking what was going on. And my brother just shut down. He wasn't talking. So that this person that was there sat me down and he said, "Well, we need to pray." And I said, "Well, that's good that we need to pray, but I don't know who I'm praying for because what's going on?" And he said, "Well, that's your mother. Your mother got really sick, and she got brought here, so we have to pray for her health." What had happened was my mom had developed a tendency to accuse my father of cheating on her. And at this stage in life, I don't believe he was. I just believe she was self-conscious and kind of creating things in her mind. The older I got, the more I figured out that that was true. But not that he was cheating, but that she was creating these things. It later became that, but when all of this started being very visible, that wasn't happening. So when I finally got a chance to see her, we went to the room, and there was a glass, of course, window. And my brother went in the room, but I didn't. I just looked from the outside, that window. And it seemed like she had tubes coming in and out of everything. And she had two big tubes that now I know what they are, And one was for the ventilator, and one was for pumping her stomach out. And the one that was for her stomach had black goo just coming out of it. And she had it, coming down her mouth and her nose. And I remember seeing her like that, and I was in complete and total disbelief. So I went back to the waiting room, and I blacked out. At that point, I have no more memory of how I got home, if I got home. I know I did because I didn't go to school for a few days, but when I made it back to school, I was in church. But that was the starting of many times that we had to go to the hospital because she tried to take her life. And it was also the beginning of the accusations not being thrown towards my father of who I was or why I was there. But those accusations began to be told straight to me. I can laugh about it now, of course. But which in turn pushed me deeper into trying to escape into my imagination, try to escape into my art, into my different friends. And to tell you the truth, I I have very little stories that are good that I can remember. I have a lot of bad stories. The 11th grade is where a really close friend of mine got shot in front of me, twice in the face, once in the chest, and he died in my arms. Um, Once in junior high or middle school, and in the beginning of high school, two different girlfriends cheated on me with other people. And when I say cheating, I'm not talking about that they started eating lunch with these other guys and left me behind. No, they were actually having sex. And it turned out that it was because I wasn't. I didn't want to. And they did, which is weird to hear that. Because it's usually, well, the guy's going to go cheat because the girl doesn't want to have sex and the guy does. So the guy cheats on his girlfriend in order to get some, and then comes back and, oh, I'm so sorry, and tries to get back to the girl. For me, it was the opposite way around. Yeah. I always got dumped because, yeah, I wasn't fulfilling the boyfriend duties. There's very little memories of stuff that I went through. And I think it's because the majority of those I have sealed so far deep inside of me that I would have to talk about them as they popped up. I wouldn't be able to talk about anything that I would remember in actual chronological order. Because the way my brain works is one word or one whatever triggers a certain memory. And that memory is not usually the memory that comes right after the one that triggered it. It's probably years later down the line or whichever. So I would have to be careful how to tell these stories, how to tell this point of view of myself. Because I don't want to jump back and forth too much. And I can't, see, I have notes in front of me so I can try to stay as focused as possible. But again, when stories pop up that I haven't remembered in years, I have to talk about them, which will sound like I'm bunny trailing. because I'm jumping from timelines. The difficulty, I guess, I shouldn't say the difficulty, the painful part of trying to live all these lives simultaneously is the fact that I had to do these because my parents never paid attention. My brother thought I was stupid because he was like, you're going to get to a point where none of these people are going to like you because you're in so many things that you're dumb. And when I said my parents didn't pay attention to me, it's not this wah, boo-hoo, your parents didn't pay attention to me. It's not that. It's more of, from the most basic thing. Most parents, when their kids come home from school, is, hey, how was school? Blah, blah, blah. This is how was school. You got any homework? You got any homework you need to do? You got any homework I need to help you on? Anything like that? Not mine. I don't remember one time them asking me how school was. I don't remember them one time asking me if I had homework or if I finished my homework. I don't remember. I remember telling them, hey, by the way, I don't have homework today because I already did it in school, which was a lie. I did it. I just didn't want to do homework. I just wanted to have fun. And my parents weren't the ones they would go to the school and check. My parents were the type that when they got called for a parent-teacher conference, my mom called the school to have it accepted that my aunt would go in their stead because they were too busy with church or church-related things or religious-related things. Only one time did my parents actually show up to school. Actually, my mom showed up to school. And I'm going to tell this story, and I'm going to finish for today. I think I told it last video. Yes, I did. I ended it with this. With me vandalizing my 5th grade school classroom. So the part of the story that I'm going to tell is this. This is the only time my mom or one of my parents showed up to a teacher-parent conference. Was because I got caught. I don't know how, but I got caught vandalizing, that I vandalized the class. So when I got caught, I told the teachers that not to worry, not to tell my parents. My parents were going to know what I did, and they were going to handle it, and they didn't need to do anything. I think they listened to that because they said, well, make sure your parents come tomorrow. And I said, well, they're not going to come tomorrow because I'm never coming back to the school again. I'm going to be going to a different school. And I think they believed it. Because I acted as I was sick. This apparently was either Wednesday or Thursday. Because I acted like I was sick the next day, which gave me the weekend. I remember it was a day of school or a couple of days of school and then no school. And then I had to figure out a way to get to go to a school come next week. So yeah, it was Wednesday. Because Thursday I was sick and I was at home sick. My mom stayed home from work, took care of me. I wasn't really sick, but she took care of me, and it was, I guess, was good. I don't have much memory, a very vague memory of me being at home. And then I felt a lot better, quote unquote, come the night of Thursday night. And I kind of felt bad, but still good come Friday. And my mom's like, I gotta go to work, so you're gonna have to take care of yourself. I'm gonna let your aunt know that, both your aunts, because both my father's sisters and my grandmother lived in the same apartment complex we did. Imagine that. My mom said, I'm gonna let them know that you're gonna be staying home for them to check on you. So I said, okay. So during that night, I kept asking myself, how am I going to do this? So I dreamt, literally I dreamt of a scheme on how I was going to handle this step by step. And what I dreamt and did was, once my mom left, I waited about an hour. Not only to make sure that she actually left, and she didn't leave and then come back real quick and then catch me doing something. I waited an hour. And then I called her job. And I don't remember who I spoke to, but whoever I spoke to, I asked for my mom, and they said, well, she just walked in. I'll have her call you back. And I'm like, no, that's okay. Don't worry about it. I know she's going to be busy. Because all I was doing was checking to make sure she was actually there. Remember, in the beginning, I told you my mom worked about an hour, hour and a half away from where we lived. So now I knew she was there. So now I turned around and I called my aunts. And I told both of them the same story. Hey, I'm not feeling that good, but it's not that bad. I'm just really, really tired. So I'm going to go to sleep. And I will call you as soon as I wake up. And both of them told me, well, don't sleep too much because you're going to need to eat something. So somewhere around lunchtime, either be awake around that time, which would be noon, 1 o'clock, or we will wake you up around that time so you can eat. And I said, sure, that's fine. That's awesome. So now I knew that they would not be coming to the house at all during that time. So what I did is that I got dressed, and on that same street that I lived on, Elizabeth Street, I would say a good 300 yards, 400 yards away from our house, which is a good bit away, 2 city blocks, there was an elementary school called Elizabeth Street Elementary School. And I went there, and I said, and I told them, hey, my parents, are such and so, and they have a very hard time speaking English, and I've been going to this magnet or CTC school. I'm saying CTC for those out here in Ohio or western side, eastern side, for this specialty school. And they transferred me, or wanted to get me transferred from that school to here before the start of next week, but they don't know how to do that because of the speaking Spanish part. So the lady, this part here I'm filling in on myself because I got home with paperwork. So I'm filling this in. So the lady must have believed me because I am sure she told me, here's the papers that your parents need to fill out. This is what you need to explain to them and have them sign here. And we'll see you on Monday. Because I remember that night, my mom didn't go to church, and I didn't go to church because I was quote-unquote sick. And I said, hey, Mom, I forgot to show you this paperwork. And the paperwork is the program of the school I was going to has finished, and they are sending me back to Elizabeth Street School down here, and they just need your signature in order to transfer me. And this is the only time that she asked me this. Well, why didn't the school call me? And I said, well, because they know that you have a hard time understanding English right now. So they sent it with me so then I can explain it to you and then you just sign it and get it done. And she must have believed, I said, I keep saying this because this is the vagueness of the memory. She must have believed me because come Monday, I was enrolled in the Elizabeth Street School. Come Tuesday is when I went home with an envelope to give to my parents. And I gave it to my parents, and they opened it up, and it was in Spanish, the letter. The letter was. And the letter said, it was stating to them that there has been a grave error on behalf of their school and the other special school, and they needed to talk to them the next morning, which would have been that coming Wednesday. So this was the one and only teacher conference that they actually went to, because they went to the teacher conference where the principal explained to them that somehow, some way, I was able to convince both schools that I was getting transferred from one school to the other. And the reason why I did this, because the Elizabeth Street School principal called the other school principal, and the other school principal said, must have, this is me filling in, must have told Elizabeth Street School principal that I had vandalized one of their school classrooms along with a couple of other children, and that I must have been so terrified about the repercussions that I was able to transfer myself from one school to the other. And because my parents signed or my mom signed the paperwork, it was all legal. So, you know, they had to send all of the paperwork from one side, from one school to the other, because everything was signed appropriately. So all of this was explained to my parents in Spanish, in a way that they could understand. Now, I will say this before I say this last part, because it's hilarious. I'm in fifth grade, people. I'm in fifth grade, and I got myself transferred from one school that took about 2 hours to get to. I got myself transferred from one school to another school, and was able to convince everybody to do it. That's hilarious. That's ingenious. I don't know what that is, but that's amazing to me. And if it was my child, this is the precursor to my ending. If it was my child, and I walked in and sat down, and either my son Skylar or my son Joshua or even my daughter Star, if either of them sitting there and this principal starts telling me this story of this miniaturized fifth grade James Bond that just transferred himself or themselves, whichever of the three would have done it, from one school to the other without any adult supervision, I would have had mixed feelings. I would have been angry, because how in the crap would have this mess happened? I would have been very disappointed and angry at the fact that one of my children vandalized the classroom. But the majority of my feelings would be of pride. That I could have probably, I would ground them from like their PlayStations or switches or phones or whatever. That would be like the maximum punishment. But we would go out for ice cream and pizza and something. Because in a course of a couple of days, literally, just a couple of days, probably even less than that, this fifth grader was able to transfer himself from one school to another before he got kicked out of one school and got his parents to sign off on it and got both schools to accept it. But that's not what happened to me, sadly. My mom cried and blamed the stupidities that I have done on my father, because that's not anything that her or any one that she ever gave birth to would ever do. Only the seed of my father would commit such atrocities, and that's what he gets. That's his payback. See what he did? Because of you. Because the way that you are. You're unfaithful. You're godless. You preach what you preach. But this is what you reproduced. This is what you made. And now God's showing you that your own seed is corrupt. I'm translating this because it's a lot harsher in Spanish. And so now my dad is not only furious because I embarrassed him, not because of what I did, but because I embarrassed him. Now my father's furious because I embarrassed him. But on top of that, he's enraged because of what my mother is saying. At the same time, looking at me, sweetheart, how could you? How could you do this to us? How could you put us in this position? And when we got back to our house, or our apartment, that's when he took off his belt and gave me the belt and said, go to your room and I'll be there shortly. So now I'm on death row with the weapon of my execution in my hand, waiting for the time to come. And I don't know, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15, 20, an hour, next day, I don't know. Well, not next day, but I don't know how long it was, but he finally made it in. And the first things he said was how disappointed he was in me. And I said, well, Dad, I can explain. And God, saying this stuff, I don't want people to be hating my father because our relationship is different now. My relationship with my father is different now. Not only because now we're both adults, but in my point of view, not only have I forgiven myself for holding on to all of that for so long, but I've forgiven him for being the way he was. I'm not sure if he is like that now still or what, but it is what it is. But what happened then is I stood up to say I can explain. I honestly can explain. And I know it sounds bad, but I can explain. And I can't tell you the movement or anything like that. All I know is he backhanded me. And I flew into my closet, breaking the closet doors down. And then he lifted me out of the closet, and grabbed the belt, and whipped me. To today's consideration would be, child abuse, but back then, that's not an excuse, but it was cultural. That's the discipline, not only Christian discipline, but also our culture in Guatemala kind of discipline. Again, it's not an excuse, but I'm just telling you that that's the reason of why it was like that. So, I had to go back to school the next day, with a black and blue booty because he whipped me. And then I had to fabricate some kind of story because of the bruising on my face. Which the following night, he asked me to forgive him for that because that should have never been. I do remember he said that, but I didn't. I held a grudge for many, many years. I was way into my 30s until I finally I let it all go. Let that go. I kept other stuff at it. And that was a lot of my tendencies of me not doing things or me not accomplishing or finishing projects or anything like that. Because it was a constant disappointment. It was constant failure. Constant not good enough. Constant punishment. I would get beat for it, whipped for it, things like that. And maybe next week, I'll review the video I did last week just to make sure. I think I did tell you guys. I don't know. No, I don't think I did. Maybe I did. I'll review it and check. I'll ask my wife because she listened to last week's. But I don't know if I told you guys my story in elementary. Well, yeah, like I think second or third grade or something like that. My poop story. If I haven't told you that, then next week that'll be one of the stories that I'll tell you, and I'll make note of it. But as a parent now, the only reason why, and I say this to all sincerity, the only reason why I failed my sons in being there for most of their childhood was because of the money. Not because I didn't want to be there or I didn't want to be in their lives or whatever kind of other nonsense. No, I wanted to be there. I wanted to be a part of it. But the majority of the reason why I wasn't there when they were growing up was because I didn't have the money for the gas and everything else to get there, to be able to be part of their lives. Whenever I did have it, I tried my best to be there because I tried my best not to be like my father and not to be like my mother. In some aspects, it was out of my control, and I ended up doing those things anyway. Becoming somewhat like my parents, but not out of my own doing. It was things that were out of my control. And I hope that, we can mend most of that with my sons, but once you get to a certain age, it's kind of hard to change your ways on those things. But hopefully things will change. And I'm able to see them more often now, not as often as I would like to, because they live 2.5 hours away from me, and real estate sucks at the moment. But when I get a chance, I try to be there, because believe me, it's worse to have a parent that can't be there because of honest circumstances than having a parent that's actually there all the time, but really not there at all. I 100% would have preferred getting beat by my parents, getting in trouble by my parents for things that they were actually involved in knowing, and me getting in trouble for, than having parents who, what I did have, who were parents that knew very little of anything that went on in my life growing up, because they were there but never there. It hurts more. And then it hurts more to get beat big time, big time. And it's just one of, and I'm thinking to myself, while I'm getting beat, I'm just thinking to myself, if he knew all the other stuff I had done, I would be dead, literally dead. And when a child is that terrified of being alone because everyone's there but not there for them, then they grow up somewhat like I did, in where you could never get ahead, you could never find your way, you can never succeed. And though you have ambitions and visions and dreams to become more and have more, to provide more, you still can't make it because you're having a hard time breaking out of the failures of your childhood and your teen years to get a grip and a stronghold on your adult life. Which then comes into the last point, not the last point, but how I ended last video and how I'm ending this one is we have so many struggles, and I have so many struggles throughout my childhood, preteen, teen years, and young adult and full adult. But these things build up to struggling to be positive. Because how are you going to be positive to something that you have no assurance you will ever succeed at? Because you were taught by fire and brimstone, literally, that anything and everything that you do will fail unless you stick a God in front of it. I am not going to do anything for a God that allowed my childhood to be the way it was. I'm going to do it. I'm not going to allow a God to be in front of anything that I accomplish that had nothing to do with any of that accomplishment at all. For example, right now, I'm on my 16th year of being with my wife. 14 years married, 16 years together. Do you think that I'm ever going to say glory be to God for that? Hell no. Because there's no way, possible way, shape or form that any deity would have gave me that. In the way that this relationship I'm in started and has been since then, no. This is our doing. This is a mutual agreement, a mutual struggle, a mutual accomplishment. Yeah. And I'm proud of it. I'm proud of where I'm at. Yeah, I've been divorced once before. And, but you know what? I'm proud of that too. Because we considered the lives of the kids more than we did our own. And we knew that it was better in the things that I experienced, which was a philosophy of we're going to stay together for the children. And then once the children are out of the house, see you later, bye. big middle finger up in the air, and then who cares? No. Again, I wasn't going to be like my parents. I didn't want to. And my ex-wife and I, although we're friends now, we didn't get along in our relationship. So we understood it's better to go our separate ways and do our best to try to be involved in the children's lives outside of that than you would be to stay in. Because, yeah, no. The way I grew up, I would have thanked God if they would have split up, if my parents would have split up when I was young. Because there would have been a very, very strong possibility that I would be way further along in life right now. Way farther down in life. But there's aspects about life that are different. And I'll talk about those once I get into the point of being adult. But it's always a struggle to stay positive whenever the starting of your life has been the way mine has. So we'll continue next week on Monday. This will be our segments in where I am calling Let's Talk Reality Mondays. Let's Talk Reality Mondays. I don't want it to be all about me, and as time goes by, I'm sure that, and I hope that others will join us. And if you do, and you've got something to say, you got an input about your own life, let's talk about it. Let's, I'm going to express, because it's my reality that I'm talking about, but I'm sure that if we start a conversation not only about what I went through, but about what you guys have been through and how you've come out, good, bad, or ugly, doesn't matter. You came out. For some of you, literally came out. Then let's talk about it. Let's talk, and I think we can mend some things. We can heal a bunch of things, and we can strengthen each other by doing that. So for now, thank you. I greatly appreciate everybody that was here, or anybody that's seeing this in another platform. I greatly appreciate it. Give me a like, a follow, or anything else that you want. That'd be great. Comment down below. And I'm not going to tell you I'm going to put links or whatever here. Once this goes up on YouTube, towards the end of the video, there's going to be, I think, a link here to the previous video, and then, of course, my subscribe over here somewhere. And that should be good, if you can do that, because I definitely want to start a conversation. I want to know not only who has had the similar kind of experiences as me, or just stories, kind of like the one I told about me transferring myself from one school to another, things like that. Who's got stories like that? I would love to hear them. So thank you again. Greatly appreciate it. And I wish you all the best and have a good weekend and week. Well, weekend, and whatever. And we'll talk again next Monday for Let's Talk Reality Mondays. My realities and hopefully yours too. So thank you and good night.